Your yoga practice should not be causing you any pain, even with scoliosis. And if it does, you need to start modifying some poses and especially your twists to make sure they're not causing you any pain or making things worse. In this video, I will show you some ways you can change your twists so that you can keep enjoying your practice in a scoliosis-friendly way. My name is Christine Jareggi-Berry and I've been teaching yoga specifically for those with scoliosis for nearly a decade now. And in my experience, it's usually the yoga twists when things are starting to go wrong. And remember that scoliosis is not just a sideward curvature, but it's also got an inbuilt rotation. And it's not going just in one way, but it's also going into the other direction as well. So it's not just a matter of let's twist the opposite way of our rotation, because there are so many compensations in our spine that whichever way you rotate, you are going to go further into your rotation pattern at some part of your spine. So as an example today, we're going to take a very common seated twist in yoga, which you might have done a million times in your class, where you bring one leg over and then you would twist to the side. Maybe you bring your elbow over, or you just kind of hold onto the knee and then you twist yourself around like this. So this might feel quite nice and it might feel like quite a nice stretch, but obviously we have to think about how this might affect our bodies with our asymmetries. So I'm taking here this cable as an example to make this a little bit more visual of what this might look like. So it's not just a two-dimensional condition, but scoliosis is three-dimensional. And you can see here in this cable, it's not just sideways bent, but it's also kind of wound up a little bit and twisted as well at the same time. So what is the best way to get these bends out of the spine? Well, you could think about, well, I just have to kind of bend the other way maybe, and then here as well, bend the other way. But actually, it's probably going to cause more asymmetry. And the best way is simply to start to lengthen it, to elongate it, ta-da, to get those twists out. So let's come back to our seated twist here. Now that we're understanding that rotation a little bit better, we can start to think about what this actually means in our bodies. So if I bring my leg over like this, I already start to feel that maybe my hips are slightly starting to compensate. And they are typically compensating in the way that my scoliosis, which is a left lumbar scoliosis, is taking me. So if I bring my right leg over, my spine is like, great, we're going further into our scoliosis. This is easy. So that's already one of the things that are going wrong. Then I'm kind of twisting myself over in this way. And this might be feeling like quite a nice rotation or derotation in some parts of the spine. But because I have an S-curve scoliosis, there will be a compensation going on at some part of the spine. And does it make it better on the other side? Let's try. Probably not, because on this side I have my right thoracic, so my shoulder is already tends to roll forward. So if I twist this way, I'm just really kind of going further into my thoracic pattern. So what can we do about this? And what we've already learned is that elongation is kind of the best way to get those kind of twisty patterns out of the spine. But obviously we do want to not skip our practice maybe completely, especially if you are in a general yoga class. You don't want to, for every twisting pose, say no, thank you. And also twists are part of day-to-day life. So it is good to practice them, but can you practice them in a way that respects your pattern? So for this particular twist, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to bring one leg over to the other side, because we already saw that that might be causing some problems. I'm simply going to cross my legs, and I'm actually going to cross my legs in the slightly more awkward position. So this is just making sure that we're again not just kind of hanging out in our familiar pattern. So I've crossed my legs the other way around. I'm making sure I've got a nice firm foundation here through my sitting bones. I'm already thinking about that elongation part. So I'm going to lengthen through the waist and then think about why we actually do a twist. And a twist is mainly there to bring some movement into your thoracic spine. This part here, the lumbar spine, doesn't actually like twisting very much. We don't want to twist our hips too much. It's just causing more problems. So if anything, we want to concentrate on this part higher up. If you've got a fusion in place in this area, you're not going to twist, I'm afraid. You're probably going to kind of lengthen here and then maybe slightly turn to the side. If you do not have a spinal fusion in place, then we're going to use our mobility. So we're going to think about lengthening, and then we really think about slightly engaging through those abdominal muscles and then allow your rib cage to turn over to the one side. Now you get a true experience of how much mobility you have in your thoracic spine, which might be a lot less than you thought. And then your hands will just go to wherever you are right now. So this is probably it for me for the twisting. Even though if I was doing the other one, I would be twisting all the way around. But this would not be good for my specific pattern and would not actually give me anything in terms of the benefits of a twist. So I hope you can see the difference here. Let's try the other side. So again, I'm going to lengthen, and then we're thinking about, can we turn from the thoracic? And I have a little bit more mobility on this side. So I'm just making a mental note of that. Just going to release my hands to where they are. So I'm not using my hands to pull myself further around, because I will then be pushing and pulling further into my rotation pattern. But if I notice some of these imbalances, which is great, which is what your practice is all about, you can then repeat the other side, of course. So this is an example of how you can start to modify your poses. And if you want to join me for my 3-day challenge, we will go into more scoliosis safe practices there, and you can join this right now for $9 only if you just follow the link here, Move with Scoliosis /3-day challenge. So using this example of a seated twist, you can maybe, which is a relatively simple one, right? You can maybe imagine what this becomes now, or where the challenge lies when we start to get into the little bit more complicated twisting poses. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't do any of these poses, and sometimes it's fun to learn some of these more challenging poses. But we always need to think about the integrity of our spine and what can we do to keep that elongation, keep the length in the spine, and then work on the mobility. Always know what is the purpose of the pose that you're practicing. There are other movements in yoga that you need to start modifying with scoliosis, especially if it's causing you pain. Watch this video here on your screen right now, where I will show you 3 very common yoga poses and how to modify them with scoliosis, so that you can keep enjoying your practice without making things worse and increasing your pain.